Joshua is being anointed and appointed for service. Joshua was chosen to succeed Moses for 5 reasons. Write it down. We're going to go quickly. But he was chosen to succeed Moses for 5 reasons. Number 1, God appointed and anointed him. See, when God appoints somebody, when God anoints someone, then you need to understand wherever God, anoints, whoever God anoints and whoever God appoints, God equips in order to do the job. So if God has placed something inside of you to do, don't tell God or others what you can't do, because God wouldn't call you to do something that he wouldn't equip you and give you the tools and empower you to get done. If he anoints you and he appoints you, he will equip you to do what he's called you to do. Now, here's the funny thing with God. He doesn't always equip you when he anoints you. God doesn't always equip you when he appoints you. Some things take time. And as you lean upon the Lord, as you yield to his Spirit, God has a way of building things inside of us, line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little and there a little in our lives. He chose Joshua to succeed Moses in part because God had appointed and God had anointed him. The second reason that he had chosen Joshua was that he was only one of 2 living eyewitnesses to the Egyptian plagues and to the Exodus from Egypt. You remember when the 12 spies were sent out and 10 of them came back and they said, there's no way we can go over into that land because the giants are too big. Well, Joshua and Caleb were 2 from among many, perhaps millions, who, had been there and who had looked over across that land and saw the giants, but said, they're not too big to hit, they're too big to miss. He was also chosen because he was Moses' personal aide for over 40 years. See, God has a way before he elevates us to hook us up with people to do things so that we understand that in order for us to be a good leader, we first got to be a good follower first. I wish somebody would help me. Don't ever think God will elevate you into a place of lasting leadership until you learn how to be a good follower first. Anybody in the house? If you can't be a good follower, you'll never be a good leader. You got to learn how to serve. You got to learn how to be submissive. You got to learn how to help. You got to learn how to aid others, because whatever you make happen for someone else, God will ultimately make happen for you. Oh, my goodness. I got to drill this into somebody, because it's like this. Whatever you sow is what you're going to reap. If you don't like what you're getting, then you need to go back to the root and start sowing something different so you can start reaping something different. I got a few people amening me, but I'm going to hit it home, because here's the thing. We want things to change, and we want it to be done quickly and expediently, but many of us don't want to put the work in to make it happen. We want to snap our fingers, go to church, pray a prayer, get doused with oil, and have everything be better, when God is expecting a little bit more from us than for us to be lazy and allow him to do it all. And so Joshua, for 40 years, you say, well, 40 years? Maybe 4 years sounds better. Do you think after 4 years that he was ready to maybe take over? He might have been. I don't know. What about 14 years? Was he ready to take over after 14? What about 20? See, the thing is, we need to learn how to be content where we're at and stay there as long as God has intended to fulfill the process that he's doing inside of us. God isn't interested in elevating you to some position until you are ready, when you get there, to succeed and take what you've been helping others to do to another level. Oh, my. How many times do I talk to people who think they're ready for something when they have no idea and clue what they're getting themselves into? If you look at Jesus, think about it for just a minute. 30 years of preparation for 3 years of ministry. That's a 10-to-1 ratio. Now, many people want to go to school for a year and think they're ready to lead the nation. But it's going to take a little bit more than that. We have to understand that preparation is one of the keys to success. And if we don't prepare to a certain level, we're not going to succeed to a certain level. See, the reason why some people don't succeed isn't because God hasn't intended them to succeed. Is that they haven't prepared themselves to succeed over time. You have to learn how to be faithful in little before God gives you much. You have to learn to be faithful with what belongs to somebody else, before God will give you something of your own. Oh my goodness. Whatever you make happen for somebody else, God will make happen for you. And he said, you know what? I'm not going to get in a hurry. I'm not going to look to do my own thing. I'm not going to look to separate from this man. God has called me to this man, and when God wants to elevate me, we'll do it in due season. But I'm not going to rush the process. I'm not going to miss out on what God has. I'm not going to push the accelerator when I ought to be hitting the brake. Can I get a hello here? I'm just going to wait and let God do what he wants to do in his perfect timing. Anybody here feel like God sometimes is slow? If you didn't raise your hand, you may not be honest. Because I think God is slow sometimes. Does it mean he is? No. But do you feel like he's slow? Sure. Do you feel like God could certainly hurry up the process, especially if we're close to the coming of Jesus and get things going a little bit faster? You ever feel like that? See, God more interested in working in you than, oh my goodness, I'm going to say it. God is more interested in working something in you than he is working something through you. And until he completes the process from within, you'll never be able to have full success from without. Everybody wants the gifts, but nobody wants to talk about the fruit. I'm all for the gifts, but if we don't establish some fruit of the Spirit in our life, then we're going to be exercising gifts and doing things either out of our own pride and agenda, or if we do it, it's not going to yield as many results as it could if we had a basis of the fruit of the Spirit already established in our lives. There's a lot of people want the power, but they don't want to get into the presence. They don't understand that part of the power of God comes naturally or supernaturally or automatically when you're in his presence. If you can just get in his presence, you don't have to ask for power. Power is going to come as a result of you being in his presence. And so he was Moses' personal weight. I wonder what we get tired of doing, thinking we're ready for something else when we're really not. Well, I've done this ministry. You know what? I've done this thing. I've done that thing. And we forget that, if God isn't done with us, then it's wrong of us to prematurely go into something else until God has completed his work where we're at. Just as much as God called Moses to be the leader, he called Joshua to be by his side, to be trained, to learn, to help, to serve, and to help him to do what God had called him to do. And now, because he had sowed this, God was raising him up to take over. It's not just something that you just wake up one morning and feel like you can do. He was also called by God because Caleb and Joshua were two that God had spoken so highly of because they had total faith and confidence in God. It's one thing for you to say something about yourself. It's another thing for others to say something about you. There's a lot of self-proclaimed geniuses and great ones in the world who have ordained themselves as the next big thing. But what I want to know is not what you say about yourself, but what do others say about you? Do others see the gifts? Do others see the anointing? Do others see the trust and the confidence that you have in God? Are others stirred by the faith that you demonstrate to God? Do others look to you and say, that's a woman of faith. That's a man of complete confidence and trust in God. What are they saying about you? I don't want to know how much of a faith-filled person you think you are. I want to know what others see when no one is around. What do they say of you? Are you faith-filled or are you fear-filled? Joshua and Caleb were two that God spoke highly of. My Lord. I don't just want to be thought of high in the opinions of others. I want to be thought high in the opinion of God. So when God was looking for somebody to replace Moses, guess what? He was thinking of someone that he thought highly of. A lot of times we're waiting on God, but it's God waiting on us. A lot of times we forget that, you know what? God can do anything. We're the ones God's looking down to see if we're willing to put our hand to the plow and walk in obedience to Him. God's eyes are roaming the earth to and fro, looking for somebody who He can raise up. The last thing was that Joshua was a man of vision. Without a vision, the people perish. He was chosen because he was appointed. He was chosen because he was anointed. He was chosen because he was an eyewitness to the miracles of God. He was chosen because he served Moses faithfully. There's something to be said about armor bearers who serve faithfully. Sooner or later, not only will they get the blessing of their leader, but they will have the potential to do greater things than their leader ever did. Let me remind you of Elijah and Elijah. He said, Elijah did to Elijah, if you follow me, if you see me, if you watch me, if you pay attention, you're going to get a double portion. Elijah did 9 miracles, but it was recorded that Elijah did double. He did 18. How many of you would like to do double the miracles of your leader? Have a double portion of your leader. And he was chosen because he was called the man of faith and obedience by God. And he was a man of vision. And notice what the Bible said. God visited Joshua. And he said, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, somebody shout now. Therefore, arise. Look at your neighbor and say, it's time for you to get up. I don't think you're listening. How many know if you want God to move, you're going to have to get up? You're going to have to do something. He said, it's time for you to arise. You can't just sit here and do nothing. You're going to have to arise. You're going to have to go over this Jordan, thou or you and all this people, unto a land which I do give to them, even to the children of Israel. It's interesting that he said there, go over this Jordan. If you look back in biblical history, if you look back and if you know anything about the Bible, you know that Jordan was a place where battles were fought. It was the place where Nahum was cleansed. And it was the place in Matthew chapter 3 where Christianity had its beginnings. He said, I'm about to take you, what? Over this Jordan. I'm about to take you through this battle. I'm about to begin something new inside of you, and I'm about to cleanse you and make you brand new. In other words, the place of Jordan, the promised land, was going to be a place of combat, it was going to be a place of cleansing, and it was going to be a place of conception. Can I say it again? For 400 years, listen to me, the children of Israel were in bondage as slaves to Pharaoh and to Egypt. Then God declared to Moses, go in and declare to Pharaoh to let my people go. He let them go, but for 40 years they wandered in the wilderness. And now, right before they were getting ready to enter the promised land, their leader died. Thankfully, God didn't say, what are we going to do now? Right before we enter the promised land, the leader dies. No, God said, it's all right. This thing has already been worked out from the beginning. And what God starts, He already knows the ending before He begins something. Oh, my goodness. You didn't hear me. Listen, before God starts something, he already knows how it's going to turn out. He already destined you for success before you were a thought in your mother's mind. Oh, my goodness. Somebody ought to rejoice a little bit. You weren't destined to fail. You were destined to succeed. You weren't destined to lose. You were destined to win. And it was planned before you were ever born. He knew the end before the beginning. He is Alpha and Omega. He is the beginning and he is the end. My God, somebody ought to lift your hands. How many know God ain't worried about what you're going through right now? I guess somebody needs to hear that again. You said, well, why ain't he worried? Because he's God. Now, you may be worried about it. You may be stressed about it. You may be burnt out thinking about it. You may be worn out dealing with it. But God ain't worried about your situation. God don't have a holy hanky he got from the Holy Ghost looking to wave and to have you surrender. No matter what you're going through, he already knows the end before he ever starts anything. So just because, listen, there might be some stuff in the middle that may not be what you like, or the way you like it, maybe a little soft, maybe a little rough, maybe a little difficult. God already destined you to succeed. So how you get to your place of victory doesn't matter as much as the fact of the matter that God has destined you to win. Say, I'm a winner. And he said, I'm at the brink, I'm about to go over, and now the leader dies. Wow. Well, is this the plan of God? Devil, we bind you. Devil, we rebuke you. Wait a minute, this is my plan, God's saying. Hello. Don't lose sight. Don't get your eyes off of me. Don't get all discouraged. Don't try to figure this thing out. I've had this thing planned. So if God's got it planned, you may not know what tomorrow holds, but you know who holds tomorrow. I don't know what tomorrow holds. I wish I did. I'm the kind of guy I'd rather know than not know. Hello? That's just me. I'd rather know. Even if it's bad, just tell me. All right, I'm going to die tomorrow. That's fine. I'm going to make today be the best day of my life. I'm going to spend every dime I got. I ain't leaving it to nobody. I'm leaving it to me. Seriously. What would you do if today was your last day? What would you do? If you knew tomorrow you were going to die, what would you do? I'll tell you, if I had any money, I'd go spend it. I'd go do something stupid. I would. That's just me. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not saying it's overly spiritual. I'm just saying, you know what? If I had one day to live, I'm going to make this day be the best day of my life. How many of you would do that? Well, can I tell you something? You don't have a promise for tomorrow. Oh, yeah. You said, well, now you're depressing me. No. You don't have a promise for tomorrow. This could be your last day. Why are we waiting and acting like we got tomorrow? Tomorrow's going to take care of itself. Today ought to be the day that we put our concern, our effort, our abilities, our giftings in to make it be the very best day that God has intended it to be. So they get right to the brink. They're about ready to cross over. Moses dies. Well, there goes that plan. 440 years. Now you die? Are you kidding me? What could be worse? You would think that'd be something that would cause them to quit. But God said, I got a plan. And you're about ready to cross over this Jordan. When I listened to the Lord, when I heard him this week, the Lord spoke to me. He said, somebody's about to cross over their Jordan this week. Somebody's about to cross over into their promised land. Now, just because you cross over, don't forget, there ain't just milk and honey over there. There's giants over there, too. You're going to have some battles because guess what? Jordan represents some battles you're going to have to fight. Don't think just because you cross over into your promised land, everything's going to be like Disneyland and Fantasy Island. There's still battles. I told the leadership class this morning, I told them, I said, you know what? You're going to have to understand, you're going to have battles all your life. Ain't none of them liked it any more than you like to hear it. But just as much as I expect something good to happen, I expect the devil to tomorrow morning to try to fight me every day of my life. Because anything good God has for me, the devil's going to fight it tooth and toenail to see what he can do to make it not happen. The good thing is, greater is he that is in me than he that is in this world. I'm Pastor Bill Jenkins from the Church of Acts, and I'm excited to release my 4th book called 15. It's a great book which really gives the number 15 in the Bible a prophetic voice to release a vision of success. Number 15 is mentioned 42 times in the Bible, and each mention revolves around 5 main themes. It's the theme of rest, the church, the God sent, deliverance, and a year of extension and addition. Do whatever you can do to get a copy of this book by going to Amazon, going to ebook Kindle, going to Barnes & Noble website, go to my website at www.churchofacts.org to get a copy of my brand new book 15 and allow it to set you up for success in 2015.